I'm of course pleased and very happy to be honored, but with my own sincerity, I don't believe that I deserve this. The reason is very simple. I'm actually a little bit saddened that people like myself, who only do one thing, to repeat the truth, be acknowledged in that way. I wish it won't be never the case. So this is my response to this award. I'm humbled, I'm honored, and I'm very happy if I could really contribute something towards the healing of Armenian people. And I wish, if you ask me what you wish, I would say I wish I were the Prime Minister of Turkey. I would go to Cernekabert and go down on my knees like Willy Brandt did in Poland. I wish I were Turkish president and go to Yerevan, to Armenian parliament, and apologize for the past crime in name of my ancestor, like Czech President Havel did in German Bundestag. But I hope the days will come that one day Turkish presidents and Turkish prime minister will take this courageous move, and so the peace and reconciliation come to the region. Because without acknowledging the historic wrongdoing, without rectifying the wrongdoing, there cannot be a peace and reconciliation in the region. That's it.
So I am a great-grandson of Cleveland H. Dodge, who was one of the founders of Near East Relief, the forerunner to the Near East Foundation, which continues today 100 years later. It was an extraordinary time, and the Near East Relief efforts were the first of its kind in terms of American philanthropy for an international cause. And it was an extraordinary relief effort, as we all know.
That's actually really great.
Okay.
I don't know what else we need to say. I think like if you could actually say, you know, tonight I accepted an award on behalf of the Near East Foundation.
Okay.
And just say briefly, the foundation is here for, and what reason?
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Sure. So tonight I accepted an award on behalf of Near East Foundation, which is the successor organization to Near East Relief. And the organization's origin was rooted in the Armenian diaspora and was created really as a massive nationwide philanthropic effort to try to stop the hemorrhaging that occurred because of the diaspora.
Are you ready?
I accepted this award tonight on behalf of the Near East Foundation, which is the successor organization to Near East Relief that was founded in 1915. And it was founded because of the Armenian Genocide and the diaspora that followed in an attempt to garner massive nationwide, here in the States, nationwide response to a crisis. And it really initially was a relief effort to try to stop the hemorrhaging, and ultimately became a development organization that now prides itself on working in the same region and elsewhere to tackle critical issues and crises of the day in much the manner we did 100 years ago.
Well, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman from California's best named city, Sherman Oaks, and I represent the San Fernando Valley. And this award is being presented to Congress, and I'm very proud of what Congress did during the World War I era, where it stepped forward and did what it could to provide relief for the Armenian people and to stop the genocide. But there is no award, and really shouldn't be an award, for the Congress of the modern era, which has repeatedly refused to recognize the first genocide of the 20th century. we were able to get the genocide resolution passed through the Foreign Affairs Committee, but never through the floor of the House of Representatives. And so this is an award to those of my colleagues who served 100 years ago. No award should be given to the Congress of today.
It is amazing to me to be able to accept this beautiful award on behalf of the Wilson family and the Sayre family. We are deeply moved and profoundly honored that our great-grandfather, President Woodrow Wilson, is remembered in this very special way by the National Commemoration for the Armenian Genocide Centennial.
Well, President Ronald Reagan throughout his life, and certainly as President of the United States, was known worldwide as being a very strong supporter of human rights. And early in his presidency, he thought it important to make a statement specifically about the genocide of the Armenian people. That's characteristic of Ronald Reagan. He was the only sitting president of the United States to proclaim what was indeed a genocide, and that makes him stand out, I think, as a very special president. President Reagan was a great supporter of human rights, and he thought it important in his presidency to declare the Armenian genocide exactly what it was, a genocide. And he stands as the only sitting president in the history of the United States to proclaim it as such. For me, as the director of the Reagan Foundation and Library, I only wish that President Reagan could have lived to see this day where there's worldwide acknowledgement of the Armenian genocide. It would have been extremely important for him to see that. He led the way as one of the sitting presidents of the United States to proclaim the Armenian genocide, and to have this 100th year celebration would have just been an honor for President Reagan to have participated in. For me, as the representative of President and Mrs. Reagan, it makes me, actually I feel a bit humble to be here tonight with the thousands of people that would have rallied right along with President Reagan in declaring what actually occurred in history as the Armenian genocide. It's just wonderful to see it occurring worldwide.
Bugün burada bulunmaktan ve benim için çok değerli, çok önemli bu ödülü almış olmaktan dolayı onur duydum. Beni buna layık görenlere teşekkür ediyorum. Ama aynı zamanda yoğun bir mahcubiyet ve utanç duygusu içindeyim. Utancım, aradan geçen bunca yıla rağmen Ermeni soykırımıyla hala hesaplaşılamamış olmasındandır. Mahcubiyetim, vatandaşı olduğum devletin ve yöneticilerinin hala soykırım suçlularıyla dayanışma duygusu içinde olmalarından ve hala gayri insani, gayri ahlaki söylemlerini devam ettirmelerindendir. İnsan hayatında çok önemli dönüm noktaları vardır bilirsiniz. Benim hayatımın da en önemli dönüm noktası anneannemin bir gün gözümdeki perdeyi, beynimdeki zinciri kaldırdığı ve hadi uç, hadi git, işte hakikat, işte adalet diyerek beni özgür kıldığı andır. İşte o andan itibaren başlayan yolculuğumun bugünkü durağında sizlerle birlikteyim. Ve ben bu ödülü 1915 soykırım mağduru nenelerimizin ve dedelerimizin anısına atıyorum. Bu yolculuğum sırasında çok yol arkadaşım oldu. Birlikte yürüdük, birlikte güldük, birlikte birbirimizden çok şey öğrendik. Ve bunlardan birini 2007 yılında kaybettim. Aramızdan aldılar Hrant Dink'i. Ve ben bu ödülü onun anısına da adıyorum. Bugün burada siz bana bu ödülleri vererek hayatımın ikinci önemli dönüm noktasını yaşattınız ve bana şunu söylediniz. Doğru yoldasın. Hadi devam et. Ben bu mesajı aldım. Sorumluluğumun bilincindeyim. Bu yolculuğuma devam edeceğim. Ve sizlerin huzurunda, sizlerin tanıklığında bir kez daha söz veriyorum ki her ne pahasına olursa olsun adaleti ve hakikati talep etmeye devam edeceğim. Gücüm ve ömrüm yettiğince sözüm söz sevgili dostlarım, sözüm söz olsun.
So my grandparents were two ordinary Americans, and in 1919, my grandfather went to Turkey to work with the Armenian Relief Committee, and my grandmother, they didn't know each other at the time, they met each other there. She also went because she felt it was a very important thing to do. They worked with the Armenian Relief in Marash for during 1919, 1920, 1921. They got married. They led a group of thousands of Armenian orphans to Beirut, and they ran an orphanage for a year in Beirut, Lebanon. They helped educate them, they helped raise them, and then they ended up spending their whole careers at the American University of Beirut, where they were lifelong friends with all of these Armenians. My grandparents, Stanley and Elsa Kerr, they both were ordinary Americans. They traveled to Armenia in 1919, and they were there in the latter stages of the genocide, and they helped rescue a couple thousand Armenian orphans. They took them to Lebanon. They ran an orphanage for a year in Lebanon, and then they spent their whole careers at the American University of Beirut, and they maintained friendships with Armenians they had known in Marash, and also in Lebanon at the orphanage for the rest of their lives.
Elsa and Stanley Kerr were my parents, and they met in Turkey, Marash, Turkey, in 1921. My father had gone there earlier with the Near East Relief Organization in 1919. And Elsa went there in 1919. My aunt and uncle also went there separately. And they were in Marash when the nationalist Turkish movement, headed by Kemal Pasha Ataturk, was expelling or killing the rest of the Armenians, the remaining Armenians, after World War I. Most of the Armenians were killed in the 1915 massacre, genocide, about 1.5 million Armenians. And the cleanup operation in 1921, about 100,000 were killed or expelled. In 1913, there were 86,000 Armenians living in the town of Marash, the city of Marash, which was a central place in the Turkish Eastern Turkey, Eastern Cilicia. And by 1923, there were 0 Armenians remaining in Marash. Most of them were killed, but according to records, about 12,000 were exported and survived. Most of the Armenians who were exported from Turkey died of starvation and other diseases. But my parents then were responsible for moving the remaining Armenian orphans out of Turkey into Syria and then eventually to Lebanon. And after they came down to Lebanon, they ran an orphanage for Armenian boys in what's now Nar Ibrahim, just about 15 miles north of Beirut. And many of those boys were educated and did very well and went on to college and graduate school, and many of them became prominent scholars or physicians or other educated people. And their descendants remember their survivor very well, and they can testify to the Armenian genocide as well. My father wrote a book after he retired and was published in 1973 called The Lions of Marash, which documents all of this. My father, Stanley Kerr, wrote a book which was published in 1973 based on, it's called Lions of Marash. It's still available from Amazon.com. And there he details with extensive references the whole events from 1919 to 1922.
Is there anything else you want to say about your parents?
Yes, their accidental meeting and the Near East relief has had a lot of influence on our family and being involved in peace work.
The award is very meaningful. The Shoah Foundation has collected close to 53,000 testimonies. The first number of years we collected testimonies of Holocaust survivors and witnesses from about 57 countries and 32 languages. Over these past few years, we've also started to include testimonies of survivors of other genocides, of Rwanda, of Cambodia, and now we are very honored and are so glad that almost 400 testimonies that were collected by Michael Hagopian as part of the Armenian Film Foundation will become part of the Shoah Foundation archive. We've collected testimonies from many genocides, and now let me start one more time.
Yeah, I'm trying not to make it
right.
just downplay.
Okay, right. The Shoah Foundation has collected close to 53,000 testimonies of the Holocaust and other genocides. We now are incorporating into the archive 400 testimonies that were originally taken by Michael Hagopian as part of the Armenian Film Foundation, and they will now become part of the Shoah Foundation archive and accessible for research and scholars and for future generations. It is very significant that we are now able to do something to, about the Armenian genocide, to memorialize for the victims of the Armenian genocide. These testimonies will be there for future generations, for educators, for scholars, to teach about the Armenian genocide. And through these testimonies, those who perished, the memory of those who perished will live on. So it's a very important and meaningful addition to the Shoah Foundation archive that we can now incorporate these testimonies and make these available. The event very powerful, that it's 100 years. It's very painful that there is still this very difficult issue of the lack of recognition by so many countries, and that's something that hopefully we can keep working to change and to be in concert and in solidarity with the Armenian people. It's very powerful and it's very painful.
I'm very honored to be invited to this 100-year commemoration of the Armenian Genocide. And I'm very honored to receive a prize on behalf of a Norwegian, Fridtjof Nansen, for his courage and his righteousness. And I don't think that people in Norway are very aware of what actually he did for the country and for the Armenian people. And I think that coming here has inspired me tremendously in terms of telling the Norwegian people about what happened in Armenia, and particularly what our hero Fridtjof Nansen did in this country. And this is relevant for today because we have new waves of refugees coming across the Mediterranean. And to live in Norway, a country that fostered Nansen, who did so much for refugees, I feel that we are obliged to somehow see what we can do in the current situation. And we are more concerned about protecting ourselves, while Nansen was more concerned about the people in need and what they needed. I think that the story of Fridtjof Nansen is the story about it's possible to do something, even for one man. He was capable to be authorized to issue the Nansen passport. And the Nansen passport, I think, helped 350,000 Armenians to return. And Nansen always said, nothing is impossible. The impossible only takes a little bit longer. But the fact that he had this courage to take on these responsibilities in the world after World War I also gave him the Nobel Peace Prize in 1922. But he's a source of inspiration for me and other Norwegians, but we need to lift him up. And coming here has given me this energy to somehow remind us, the Norwegians, about the connection between Norway and Armenia, between Nansen and the Armenian people. Nansen is known for having said, nothing is impossible. The impossible only takes a little longer. For me, to be in the cathedral on the opening night was to see a very powerful diaspora. I didn't know that the Armenian people had such a powerful diaspora. And it's an awakening to other diasporas to maybe be more concerned, to be more engaged in what they can do for their home countries. And I also really feel that we, the Norwegian people, we don't know enough about the Armenian history. And this history, I am now inspired to make known in a much stronger way back home in my country. It makes me inspired to go back home to Norway and spread more information. But it's going to be mutual. I would like to travel to Armenia with some of my colleagues. We will give lectures about Fridtjof Nansen in specific institutions, universities, and I also hope to organize a conference next spring in Norway about Nansen and Armenia. And of course, we can then focus on why has Norway not recognized the genocide. In Norway, Nansen is known as the polar researcher, the polar explorer. What he did for refugees, what he did for Armenia has inspired me, given me strength to continue the work I am doing today in the Nansen Center for Peace and Dialogue. So I'm inspired, I'm passionate. To come here has given me strength. It's not something that focuses on the past, it's something that focuses on the future.
So here we are on the 100th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. And it's really, to me, quite exciting actually, because really for the first time in my memory, the story is picked up in the popular press. You pick up the Boston Globe, you pick up the New York Times, National Public Radio have pieces on the Armenian Genocide. This is a story which has been in the background for so long. It's important that here on the 100th anniversary, people are listening and sharing the story. One of the things that's really striking to me with all the commemoration around the Armenian Genocide, it's really powerful if we think about the different audiences that are reacting. there's really powerful response from the Armenian community and families who may have survivors, you know, in their family, or other people whose families were lost during the genocide. And I'm also struck how these events have also been opportunities for people who are not Armenian to join together and remember the history together. And it's really powerful, the personal, and then I think the larger symbolic reflection when communities are coming together to recognize this really important landmark event and part of our history and the history of human rights around the world. The commemorations have been somber, powerful, reflective, and emotional, very emotional. At Facing History, we've actually always been honored by the reception we've gotten from Armenians to our work. We feel that the history of the Armenian genocide is vital. It's something that people need to actually understand. If we really hope to prevent genocide and mass violence, we need to know what happened to the Armenians 100 years ago, because it's part of our collective history, the response, and actually our understanding of what it'll take to prevent genocide. Those roots are actually going to be from this history. The commemorations of the Armenian genocide have been really powerful because there's this balance between a need to remember and a need to also recognize the resiliency of the community. It's been very powerful for me as a non-Armenian, and I've been honored to actually be able to participate in a number of these ceremonies.